leaders. This is about optics and power and control and stoking the ego of Republicans and King Daddy. We are tanking the California economy, the fourth largest economy in the world, largest donor state. I refuse to support this resolution, and I yield back.
The gentlelady yields back to the gentleman from Maryland.
We reserve, thank you.
The gentleman from Maryland reserves. The gentleman from California is recognized.
This is really an odd notion that we've heard repeatedly, that the violence was only concentrated in part of LA and we needed to zoom in and look at the city as a whole. For the folks who had to deal with this chaos in downtown LA, it's a little comfort to them that things might have been more serene in Beverly Hills. My colleague from California uses the term hellscape for LA. I'm not sure I would use that term, but I can tell you LA has had a lot of problems, so much so that the sheriff's department even had to come out and tell folks, don't wear your jewelry when you go outside. Just put it on after you get to your destination. And as to the assertion that somehow this is a made-for-TV spectacle created by the president, ask yourself, what made for more sensational TV images? The Waymos being set on fire, the Molotov cocktails being thrown at officers, which is to say the things that happened before the National Guard got there, or our dedicated National Guard members standing outside federal buildings making sure that no further damage to property and life occurred. I reserve.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
The gentleman from California has engaged in a spirited defense of the immigration policies of the administration. I wonder if he would clarify for us what the policy is this week, or at least today, with respect to agriculture in California or any other state, because President Trump heard from the Secretary of Agriculture and large agrarian interests saying that his immigration policies were destroying agriculture in America by getting rid of tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people who work there, and they're disrupting the entire agricultural economy. Then Donald Trump announced that there were some very fine, good workers within the agriculture sector, and they would not be enforcing the law there, and that lasted for several days. Then there was a reversal, and they went back to saying, yes, we will be doing ICE immigration crackdowns again. Then Donald Trump heard again from the agriculture secretary, as I understand it, and other interests, and he said, no, they would be leaving some of these people alone. I wonder if the gentleman could clarify that for us, and I wonder whether it causes him to second guess in any way his absolute support for these policies. Maybe it suggests there's something wrong with what they're doing and the administration could go back to the drawing board. I yield 2 minutes to the very distinguished gentlelady from California, Representative Barragan.
Gentlelady from California is recognized.
Thank you, Ranking Member Raskin. I rise in opposition to this partisan and misleading resolution under consideration. We've heard our colleague distort the facts already through this debate. I want to remind the American people and everybody, it was local law enforcement that got the situation under control before the National Guard showed up, before the Marines showed up. I know because I was on the phone with sheriffs and I was on the phone with local law enforcement who said, no, we don't need anybody. The situation is under control. This resolution distorts the facts of what happened in Los Angeles. It falsely paints a picture of widespread chaos across Los Angeles to justify and legitimize Donald Trump's dangerous decision to deploy the National Guard and U.S. Marines on American soil, all without the consent of California's governor or a request from local law leaders and law enforcement. That's why I worked with Representative Zoe Lofgren to introduce a resolution that condemns violence, that supports peaceful protests, and sets the facts straight. Angelenos have exercised their First Amendment right to peacefully protest federal ICE raids that have terrorized our communities. Unfortunately, there have been a small handful of troublemakers who have taken to the streets to cause destruction and physical confrontation. They should be arrested and prosecuted, something that the governor, the mayor, and LA's congressional delegation have called for from the start. Let's remember, though, how we got here. What we've seen on our streets is chilling. Masked men in unmarked cars, no identification or badge, drawing weapons, swarming businesses and parks to indiscriminately stop, arrest, and detain immigrants and U.S. citizens. People are being stopped and detained because of the color of their skin. These are not violent criminals. The majority of the people have no criminal record. They're taking and leaving, they're taking the parents and they're leaving the kids stranded. They have baying grenades in crowds and sending those off. ICE is even arresting U.S. citizens based on how they look.
I would grant the gentlelady additional 30 seconds.
The gentlelady has an additional 30 seconds.
It is this conduct that's causing people to go out on the street and peacefully protest. President Trump's deployment of troops only escalated tensions and further unrest. Democrats have been clear. Anyone who committed violence must be held accountable. We must recognize that peaceful protests are patriotic. Deploying troops to silence dissent is not. This resolution ignores those facts to score political points. I urge a no vote, and I yield back.
Gentlelady yields.
We reserve.
The gentleman from Maryland reserves. The gentleman from California is recognized.
The assertion has been made repeatedly that the president's deployment of the Guard escalated tensions. We have seen zero evidence for that, and we all saw the images, the horrifying violence that was occurring before the Guard came in. I would also remind my colleagues who continue to assert that there was something untoward about the president deploying the Guard that the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals has ruled otherwise. In a unanimous decision, the court analyzed the relevant statute, which provides that the president has the authority to make use of the Guard in order to stop the execution of federal law from being disrupted. And the judges looked at the facts on the ground and said when you have Molotov cocktails being thrown at officers, when you have a dumpster, a commercial dumpster being used as a battering ram in order to break into a federal office building's parking lot, when you have roadways being shut down, this looks a lot like there's a disruption of the ability to carry out the federal law. So again, not me saying this. This is a unanimous panel of Trump-appointed and Biden-appointed judges who came to that determination. And I'll happily answer the question of my friend from Maryland about what is the question when it comes to agriculture. Well, here's what the law says. The law says that coming into this country without authorization is illegal, categorically. And then it is within the discretion of the executive branch how to prioritize deportations. And across party lines, there has always been a strong focus on prioritizing those with criminal records. Beyond that, different presidents have chosen to exercise that discretion in different ways. For example, President Obama chose to deport millions of people during his time in office. And it's ultimately a matter of how the president chooses to carry out that policy. But here's the important point for purposes of today's debate. Whatever your views are on that matter, whether you favor deporting everyone in the country illegally, whether you favor deporting no one in the country illegally, you should not, you cannot, you absolutely must not use violence in order to advance that point of view. That is the principle at stake in today's debate, and to vote against this resolution is to countenance what happened, the horrifying events that we saw in my state. I reserve.
The gentleman from California reserves. The gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'm glad we're getting somewhere in this debate. The gentleman concedes that it's within the discretion of the administration to decide where to target resources. I was just trying to find out where the administration is this week, because we're getting conflicting accounts of whether or not they're still targeting the farm workers, because we're getting reports from California, Texas, New Mexico, that entire farms are shut down because there have been ICE raids. The other workers are afraid to come to work, and they're begging the president to do something. He said we would stop doing that. Then they reversed it, I think, when Stephen Miller got involved, and now the agriculture interests again are getting involved. They should get the policy together. But it speaks to an underlying problem here, which is that the overwhelming number of arrests now are not of people who are criminal suspects for anything. 65% of the people who've been taken by ICE since this administration began had no criminal convictions at all. And that's why you read articles like in the Wall Street Journal about small rural towns that voted for Donald Trump that are up in arms, that are in an uproar because people who have done nothing wrong and are pillars of the community are being taken away from their workplaces, their farms, their restaurants, their businesses, in their homes. I'd also would like to ask the distinguished gentleman from California, whom I know to be a serious student of the law because he was a student of mine of the law when we were at Yale Law School together. What authorizes the government to send people out who are not identified with any law enforcement insignia, masked in unmarked cars, to arrest people. Doesn't that set the people up for danger in America? That's what the assassins in Minnesota were doing. They showed up dressed like some kind of vague, like police person without any law enforcement insignia in an unmarked car. That sets us up for danger. Don't you think that the law enforcement norm is for people to know who police officers are so that they know they have to submit to their authority? I would happily yield or I'll reserve and see whether my colleague would like to answer the question.
The gentleman from Maryland reserves. The gentleman from California is recognized.
Well, if it's true that law enforcement is somehow never allowed to be in something other than their uniform, I think you have a lot of people who got tickets for running a stop sign when there was an unmarked car there who would be happy to hear that because they have now a new basis to challenge that. I think we are all aware that there are circumstances like when someone is undercover, when they're doing a stakeout, in which it doesn't make sense to identify yourself as an officer. Now, of course, that's neither here nor there because we've seen that in these very targeted operations, these folks are very clearly identified, and to the extent that some have chosen to not have their faces revealed, it's because we have seen the threats against ICE absolutely skyrocket over the last several months. And it's, again, quite ironic when you had folks on that side of the aisle who were all about masks in the most absurd of settings during the COVID years. We'd have people playing singles tennis or out on the ocean paddleboarding, and they're required to wear a mask. You'd have 2-year-olds having to wear masks all day when no other countries, did this. And yet now, when a federal officer undertaking dangerous activity, trying to do their jobs, yet facing threats, being doxxed, feeling like they and their family are at risk, chooses to take this protective measure, now you have a problem with it? I reserve.
The gentleman from California reserves. The gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
Well, we have no further speakers. We're ready to close.
So does the gentleman wish to? So the gentleman reserves at this time.
Yeah, I reserve it this time.
The gentleman from California is recognized.
I have no further speakers and wish to close. I reserve.
The gentleman also reserves. So the gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Masked agents in unmarked cars sent out violating people's due process rights, as the courts have found, including all the way up to the Supreme Court. They're arresting members of Congress. They're prosecuting members of Congress for doing their jobs. They federalized the state National Guard when the police in Los Angeles and the elected officials are doing their jobs. This is an authoritarian attack on constitutional democracy. We must get back to the rule of law, and if nothing else, the Republicans should put up the plaque they are committed to put up, honoring the police officers who defended American democracy, the Vice President of the United States, the House of Representatives, the Senate, and everybody in this room during the January 6th violent insurrection, which Donald Trump was impeached for having incited. I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. The gentleman from California is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, what happened in LA put on stark display years of reckless and failed policies, starting with the millions of people who came across the border illegally during the Biden years, and then the sanctuary policies that California has enacted, not to mention the countless people who have been released from prison early thanks to reckless crime policies. But today's resolution is not about any of that. Today's resolution is about something much simpler, a notion that I would hope would be unobjectionable, that in this country, we settle our differences through reasoned arguments and debate, not through force and violence, that we make political decisions through elections and not through riots. I hope that this resolution will receive strong bipartisan support on the floor today, and I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. All time for debate has expired pursuant to House Resolution 530. The previous question is ordered on the resolution and the preamble. The question is on the adoption of the resolution. Those in favor say aye. Those in favor opposed say no. The ayes have it. The resolution is agreed to.
I'd like to call for the
Is the gentleman requesting the yeas and nays?
Yes.
The yeas and nays are requested. Those favoring a vote by the yeas and nays will rise. A sufficient number having risen, the yeas and nays are ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. This is a 15-minute vote. On this vote, the yeas are 215, the nays are 195. The resolution is adopted. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. Somebody else? Oh, they're going to do 1 minute? Okay. I'll hang. So do we? The chair lays before the House a communication.
The Speaker's Rooms, Washington, D.C., June 27, 2025. I hereby designate the period from Friday, June 27, 2025, through Sunday, July 6, 2025, as a district work period under Clause 13 of Rule 1. Signed sincerely, Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House of Representatives.
Okay, waiting on her. So.
Entertain request for 1 minute speeches. The House will be in order. The chair will now entertain requests for 1 minute speeches. For what purpose does the gentleman from Ohio seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and to, revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to recognize the Hillsborough High School Lady Indians softball team. The Lady Indians had a historic season this year that saw them achieve over 20 wins and secure the Division IV Regional Championship for the first time in 23 years, finishing the year as state runner-ups. Teamwork propelled them to great achievements as the Lady Indians consistently had great performances on the mound and in the batter's box. Along the way, the Lady Indians were supported by a dedicated fan base of parents and alumni that fueled their desire for victory. Without the fan support and the support of their coaches, none of this would have been possible. I'll always be grateful for the parents and coaches that pour so much of themselves into our student athletes. The great achievements of the Lady Indians belong to them as much as they belong to the players. To the Lady Indians, all of Southern Ohio is proud of your accomplishments, and I look forward to another great season next year. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield back.
Thank you. For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Oregon seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I seek unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in support of the LGBTQ community to celebrate Pride Month and to call out President Trump's reckless decision to shut down the 988 specialized LGBTQ youth hotline. This is a devastating decision that will affect people in every corner of our country. I want to put this into perspective. In 2024, 12% of LGBTQ youth attempted suicide, while nearly 40% seriously considered it. In comparison, the national average for students contemplating suicide is 20%, still far too large. Additionally, many of these young people are left without critical support from caring adults, leaving them nowhere to turn when crisis falls. We cannot deny the fact that this hotline is a vital service. Mental health is not a partisan issue, and our children should not be used as pawns in the president's purely political game. As the co-chair of the Bipartisan Mental Health Caucus, I am committed to expanding access to specialty mental health care by training qualified professionals to provide culturally relevant care and ensuring that high-quality, affordable services are available to all who need them. I will not remain silent in the face of President Trump's targeted attacks, and I will continue to fight for the LGBTQ communities. Thank you, and I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Georgia seek recognition?
Ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute, to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to recognize one of our nation's greatest World War II museums, the National Museum of the Mighty 8th Air Force. The museum, located just outside of Savannah in Pooler, Georgia, received a preserved B-24 Liberator from the National Museum of the U.S. Air Force in Barksdale Air Force Base. The aircraft is one of the 3 remaining B-24's relics from World War II, originally named Rupert the Roo II. Rupert will undergo a brief restoration process and will join a B-17 Flying Fortress to become the newest centerpiece of the museum. These 2 machines represent the complete collection of the aircraft flown by the Mighty Eighth throughout the Second World War in both the European and Pacific theaters. Thank you to the Barksdale Air Force Base for reallocation and preservation of this historic planes. Efforts like these allow the National Museum of the Mighty Eighth Air Force to fully educate the public on the nation's most storied Air Force division ever known. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from New York seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I ask you unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we often speak about how Congress can help small businesses grow, but the true hard work is being done on main streets across this nation. In the Sound Shore region of Westchester, business owners are advancing their own businesses and finding time to lead local chambers of commerce, implementing programs and events that promote their business districts. From Mistletoe Magic and Rye to the Downtown Farmers Market in Scarsdale, sidewalk sales in Larchmont and Mamaroneck, these entrepreneurs are driving revenue and profits with creativity and energy. Let me recognize the work of these local leaders: Catherine White, New Rochelle; Michael Murphy, Mamaroneck; Brian Jackson, Rye; Ralph Carcutt in Harrison; Cammie Morrissey and Fritz Falanke at Portchester, Rybrook, Rye-Town; Gina Proya and Nancy White, Larchmont; Marcy Berman Goldstein and Ken Gidden, Scarsdale Business Alliance; Ann Gold and Mark Jerome, New Rochelle Business Improvement District. In future speeches, I will recognize leaders in the Bronx and along the Hudson River communities of Westchester. We salute them all. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Wisconsin seek recognition?
Thank you. I'd like to speak for a minute and have the ability to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
There are good days and bad days in this building. Today we have a little bit of a happy day and sad day in the Grothman office. John Nagel, part of my policy shop, is leaving today. He's a great guy. He's the pride of Poway, California. Well, it's our loss. It's going to be the gain of the Pacific Legal Foundation. But I'd like to say one more time, thanks for all the help you've given me, John, and come back to our office again and again when you're on the Hill.
Gentleman yields back. For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Maryland seek recognition?
Speaker, I seek unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, 7 years ago, on June 28, 2018, a gunman who should have never been able to purchase a firearm walked into the Capitol Gazette and killed 5 members of our hometown newspaper: Gerald Fishman, Rob Hyacin, John McNamara, Rebecca Smith, Wendy Winters. Amid the shock and horror, just hours after the shooting, the Capitol issued a simple statement: "We're putting out a damn paper tomorrow." And that they did. These journalists made clear that the Fourth Estate cannot be silenced, and they made Maryland damn proud. On this tragic anniversary, I want to make it clear on this House floor that as elected officials, we were not sent here to look away, to give up, or to offer our thoughts and prayers alone. That is why I rise today, to remember the journalists we lost, to continue the fight for full freedom of the press, and for common sense gun safety legislation that protects all of our communities. I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from South Carolina seek recognition?
Reverend Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute, revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Reverend Speaker. House Republicans have passed legislation that delivers on promises made, promises kept to President Donald Trump by stopping wasteful spending with a big, beautiful bill, eliminating taxes on tips and overtime. This bill secures the border, unleashes American energy, delivers the largest tax cut for working and middle-class families ever, creates jobs, and brings common sense to government. Medicare and Social Security will be protected, while Medicaid will be guarded against waste, fraud, and abuse, as pioneered by Senator Billy Garrett of South Carolina, ensuring it is available to our most vulnerable Americans with laws enforced by Solicitor David Stumbo. It is important to everyone. A family with 2 children in South Carolina will receive higher take-home pay between $7,000 to $10,000 with the new beautiful bill. In conclusion, God bless our troops as the global war on terrorism continues. Trump is reinstituting existing laws to protect American families with peace through strength, revealing war criminal Putin lies, insulting Trump, mocking Trump, with Trump allied with the murderous regime in Iran who proclaim death to America. I yield back.
For what purpose does a gentlewoman from Maryland seek recognition?
Ask for unanimous consent to address the House and to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, as chair of the New Dems Rural Broadband Task Force, I rise today to highlight the incredible progress we're making and yet the critical work that remains to close the digital divide in our country. And this is a personal passion of mine, as I spent years as a nonprofit advocate and then had a tenure at NTIA to roll out the broadband BEAD programming. This past Monday, I had the honor of hosting my colleague, Rep. Budzinski, in Frederick, Maryland, in the 4th step on the New Dems on the Road tour. We visited a fiber installation and sat down with local leaders, government officials, and industry experts to talk about what's working and what remains in the way of delivering high-speed, affordable internet. We also discussed the challenges facing broadband deployment, including new rulemaking efforts, potential disruptions of BEAD implementation, federal funding freezes, and the incredible risk posed by the AI moratorium linked to the BEAD funding in the budget package. I've just seen how transformative broadband access can be, from telehealth to learning, to also our U.S. competitiveness and emergency public communications. Just as rural electrification lit up America in the 20th, broadband is the key to unlocking opportunity in the 21st. Let's finish the job. Thank you, and I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Illinois seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I ask to address the House for 1 minute and to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to honor the life and legacy of Sister Rosemary Conley of Chicago, Illinois, who passed away on June 19th at the age of 94. During her extraordinary life, Sister Rosemary served with unmatched devotion as the longtime executive director of Misericordia, a home for children and adults with developmental disabilities on Chicago's North Side. She started her work in 1969 when Misericordia was a small and under-resourced institution caring for about 50 children with profound challenges. Sister Rosemary brought a bold vision rooted in compassion and dignity. And over the next 5 decades, she transformed Misericordia into one of the nation's most respected care facilities, serving hundreds of residents and employing over 1,200 staff and volunteers. She spearheaded fundraising, created jobs through social enterprises like the Hearts and Flower Bakery, and expanded the campus to include community-integrated homes. Revered across Northern Illinois and beyond, Sister Rosemary was widely recognized for her impact on families and her unshakable belief that every life has purpose. I want to extend my condolences to all of Sister Rosemary's family, friends, and colleagues on this immense loss, and I yield back.
For what purpose does a gentlewoman from Vermont seek recognition? Without objection, the gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, we all know that the Republicans' so-called Big Beautiful Bill is wildly unpopular. Every poll, including Fox News, shows that Americans think it's rotten, and it is. That's why Trump is trying desperately to rehabilitate the bill in the eyes of the public. But Americans aren't stupid. They don't want their health care taken away. They don't want us taking food away from hungry people. They don't want our rural hospitals to close. They don't want to add trillions of dollars to the debt, and they sure as hell do not want the wealthy to continue to get rich off the back of the rest of us. This is not rocket science. They want a tax code that doesn't screw us over. They want affordable rent and mortgages. They want lower health care costs. They want to see us fighting for a better future for their families. All this bill does is take and take and take away from working people and provide it once again to the billionaires who do not need it. They see right through it, and so do we. I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Arkansas seek recognition?
Ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute, revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today I want to celebrate the storied career of Officer John Saub, who will be retiring today after proudly serving the Capitol Police for over 30 years. Officer Saub first joined the Capitol Police in 1993 when he was hired as a security aide before being hired as a full-time officer the following year. Working in Capitol Divisions 2 and 3, Officer Saub has protected this Capitol and its millions of visitors and workers with honor. After 30 years, he likely has enough stories to fill this House chamber, and a number of those include his brother, William, as the two served together from 1994 until 2008. In 2011, John made his way down to the House Intelligence Committee, where he spent every day for the last 14 years securing our members and staff. For over a decade, John has been a valuable asset to our intelligence team, not only providing security, but also serving as the committee expert on all things capitals and commanders. While everyone at Intel will miss our friend, wish him the best as he embarks on his next great journey. Enjoy your retirement, John.
For what purpose does the gentleman from California seek recognition?
I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and to revise and change my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
I rise today to honor Stephen Chaos Camus, a vibrant soul from Blythe, California, whose life reminds us of the urgent need for compassion in mental health care. Stephen was a talented hairdresser with a bright personality and deep love for his mother, Angela Colangeli. He faced incredible challenges, addiction, stigma around his queer identity, and schizophrenia, yet he fought to find peace, often without the professional help he needed. On October 27, 2021, Stephen tragically took his own life, but even in his darkest moments, he dreamed of helping others not to feel alone in their struggles. In his memory, his mother and his father, George, founded Peace from Chaos, a nonprofit supporting those living with mental illness, addiction, and social rejection. As Men's Mental Health Awareness Month comes to an end, let's honor Stephen by fighting for a world where no one suffers in silence and everyone has access to care, support, and dignity. Thank you, and I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Pennsylvania seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I request unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Over the weekend, the world once again experienced a shocking act of terrorism committed against innocent civilians in Syria. Those who attended Sunday Mass at the Mar Elias Church were not combatants. They were members of the community who sought to live in peace and rebuild from war. They were members of our community who had endured unimaginable suffering and faced an uncertain future with faith and hope. In the shadow of relentless terror and violence, it takes enormous courage to do many of the things that we take for granted. We can take inspiration from those who faced down the cowardly perpetrators of destruction with faith and hope as they work to rebuild their nation. I joined the Greater Lehigh Valley's Syrian community in praying for the victims of this attack and for peace to return to Syria. May God bless all of those who stand up in the face of terror and violence. I yield back.
For what purpose does a gentlewoman from Ohio seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I request unanimous consent to address the House and to extend and revise my remarks.
Without objection, the gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today, I rise to recognize 3 outstanding police officers from the Fairlawn Police Department as this week's Ohio's 13th Congressional District Champions of the Week. Last month, officers Francisco Corona, Brian Buskirk, and Hannah Plant exemplified the best of public service when they jumped into action to save a life of a woman in distress. On May 23, 2025, Officer Buskirk noticed a car stop on a sidewalk where he found a woman unconscious and unresponsive. With the assistance of Officers Corona and Plant, the officers broke the car window and extracted the woman, then quickly initiated CPR while preparing the automated external defibrillator. Their teamwork and rapid response made the difference in a critical life or death situation. I want to extend my sincere gratitude to Officers Corona, Buskirk and Plant, and the Fairlawn Police and Fire Departments for continuing to keep our community safe. Your actions and bravery do not go unnoticed. And on behalf of Ohio's 13th Congressional District and the United States House of Representatives, we thank you for your service to our community. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Utah seek recognition?
I ask the unanimous consent to address the House and revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It was a pleasure to visit the Midvale Boys and Girls Club recently and speak with the youth about success, grit, and the power of big dreams. This summer, over 200 young people, supported by 17 dedicated staff members, were granted an environment in which they can have fun. In the process, they'll build character, learn leadership skills, and develop healthy relationships. Many of the youth will take part in activities like the Run Club, where the benefits of competition can be experienced. They're also learning the importance of goal setting, the pain of preparation, and the tenacity to push through the pain. Then the process of learning one of the more important life lessons, and that is we cannot control the scoreboard, but we can control the hustle. These tenets are at the heart of meritocracy and what I observed when during my visit of the Midvale Boys and Girls Club. To the staff, thank you for your commitment, and to the young people, enjoy the experience, remember what you're learning, apply what you've learned, and more importantly, pass it on. I yield back. Thank you.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Ohio seek recognition?
I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to honor the life and legacy of a remarkable daughter of Northwest Ohio, Diane D. Haywood Talmadge. While her passing leaves a deep chasm in our community, Dee was a formidable force for good. She was a Republican, and I'm a Democrat. And her patriotism, her philanthropy, her good sense, and elegance bestowed a living legacy that serves as an example of an exemplary life well lived. Dee embodied the very highest aspirations for Northwest Ohio, a product of Toledo's DeVilbiss High School, a proud Ohio State Buckeye, and a Toledo Rocket. She used her education to give back to the community that raised her. Dee served on the Ottawa Hills School Board, the boards of Owens Community College and Woodlawn Cemetery, and helped guide the University of Toledo's Alumni Association. She always led with vision, clarity, courage, and compassion, and her inspired leadership drew from all walks of life to make a difference. She mentored generations of new leaders, many of whom sit on boards, serve in office, or volunteer today because of her example. To observe Dee barreling down the street in her convertible, broadly smiling and waving, was to feel the heart of Toledo itself. Her love for our people, progress, and potential was boundless, and her life was not just one of service, but of joyful commitment to her family, and I will put their names in the record, including her beloved husband of 63 years, Brigadier General Dr. Lance Talmadge, a dedicated community and military leader alongside her. May her legacy of character and commitment continue to inspire generations to come. She surely will be missed. She was one of a kind. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Tennessee seek recognition?
I seek unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, today I rise in support of this morning's ruling from the Supreme Court that will greatly reform the ability of rogue district court judges to issue nationwide injunctions. According to a Politico article this morning, with this ruling, the Supreme Court, quote, said that in most cases, judges can only grant relief to the parties who brought a particular lawsuit and may not extend those decisions to protect other individuals without going through the process of converting a suit into a class action. I have been fighting for this day for years, including introducing legislation in multiple sessions of Congress that would curtail the ability of rogue district court judges to issue nationwide injunctions, often at the behest of special interest groups that shop around for a friendly district court judge. This is a good day for democracy. Please join me in congratulating the Supreme Court for this outstanding ruling. I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from California seek recognition?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I request unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute to revise and extend my remarks, sir.
Without objection, the gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As Black Music Month comes to a close, I rise in the House today for 1 minute to honor my dear friend, Dwayne Wiggins. Dwayne Wiggins passed away on March the 7th, 2025, and my community of Oakland, California, and the world continues to grieve. We are mourning not only his significant contributions to the Black music community, but we knew Dwayne as a legendary musician who gave as much as his voice as he gave to community. He made and produced music that uplifted so many, but moreover, we know him as a monumentous soul of good. He mentored countless artists and young people, including Destiny's Child and Beyonce, helped to start the career of Alicia Keys, again was on the Grammy stage every year for decades. He opened up many spaces for young people in my community in California's District 12 to thrive. He was incredibly generous. But moreover, we know that there is no dying when it comes to Dwayne's voice. You cannot kill culture. And we love you, and we love your family, and we're so thankful for what you have given our community. Your voice will never cease. And I yield back. Thank you.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Michigan seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I want to address the House, unanimous consent to address the House and revise my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to honor immigrants. Throughout American history, immigrants of all kinds have made our country great. Sergey Brin invented Google, and Madeleine Albright blazed trails as the first female Secretary of State. But instead of celebrating this diversity, many Republicans want to shame immigrants. On Tuesday, Zohran Mamdani, an immigrant from Uganda, won the New York mayoral primary. Representative Andy Ogles promptly went on an unhinged anti-immigrant racist rant throughout yesterday and today, calling this freely elected man and U.S. citizen Little Muhammad, called for revoking his citizenship and for him to be deported with no just cause. We must always condemn hate. I have introduced a censure resolution, House Resolution 553, against Andy Ogles for his horrific anti-immigrant sentiment. Immigrants make our country great. And I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Texas seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor the amazing life of Sally Ruth Moore, a trailblazer in education, a fierce advocate for equity, and a beloved daughter of Grand Prairie and a pillar of the community in Dalworth on San Antonio Street. Ms. Moore passed away this year at 91, and she leaves behind a major legacy of education in the North Texas community. For over 4 decades, she devoted her life to uplifting students and breaking barriers, becoming the associate superintendent in the Grand Prairie ISD. Her journey began as a teacher, a counselor, a principal, where she received numerous accolades for her excellence in the classroom and shaping and forming students for generations. Her leadership wasn't just about academics, it was about dignity, discipline, and love. She was just an amazing person. A school was named after her, Sally Moore Elementary, in the Dalworth community in Grand Prairie in 2001, but her legacy will live on for a very long time. She leaves behind a son, Greg, and if she looks familiar to you, it is because she is the last remaining sibling out of the 4 Johnson kids. That is Eddie Bernice Johnson, our former colleague. That is her sister. And so we remember her today as a servant leader and a giant in Texas education and a beacon of hope. And may her memory be a blessing. And may we all strive to follow her excellence. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Under the Speaker's announced policy of January 3rd, 2025, the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Green, is recognized for 60 minutes as the designee of the Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, and still I rise. I say, and still I rise, because I have been censured, but I'd like to assure people that I have not been silenced. Censured, but not silenced. And I rise today, Mr. Speaker, proud to say that I am an ally of the LGBTQIA plus community. An ally. And I rise as an ally, Mr. Speaker, to acknowledge that HRES 550, the original LGBTQIA Pride Month resolution of 1925, is a part of the history of the records of the House of Representatives. This resolution is a resolution that I'm honored to present annually, and it speaks to the accomplishments of the community, but it also addresses many of the things that are shortcomings in our society as they impact the community. So I'm proud today to rise and say that as an ally of the community, this resolution has 125 co-sponsors. For many, that might not seem like a lot, but I can recall a time when we had many persons who wanted to sign on, but for reasons that were associated with elections and politics, they would not sign on. I think people are overcoming those concerns and those fears, and they're recognizing the fact that we ought not discriminate against people because of who they are. I believe that it would be beneficial for people to talk to people who are from the community before drawing conclusions. I especially say this as it relates to the trans community. There are many issues to be discussed about the trans community, but today I just want to acknowledge that having talked to people from the trans community, having had an opportunity to have dialogue where I can ask questions and get answers from the people themselves, I have come to a conclusion that this community exists because people literally want to be themselves. I spoke to a trans person who informed me that this person, without giving any hint as to whom it is, because the person has spoken to me in confidence, but this person indicated that since the person could recognize the image in a mirror, the person realized that there was a need to have a different image because the person wanted to be of a different sex than the person was assigned at birth. I have talked to more than one person who has given me similar evidence. I think we ought to believe people when they say this. I just don't think that people will go out of their way to try to convince you that this is appropriate and would do some of the things necessary to identify themselves properly just to get attention. Nobody wants to get attention by having surgery that costs thousands of dollars. Nobody wants to get attention by having to face a society that rejects too often people because they don't understand who they are and what they're all about. We're talking about people who just want to live their lives and be left alone. They're not trying to impose themselves upon other people. These are decent human beings who just want to be left alone and be allowed to be themselves. I cannot for the life of me understand how someone could see this as harmful to society in the main. I have myself been discriminated against. Having been born a son of the segregated South, having been born an African American, I have been discriminated against. I can remember when I had to go to the back door to get food simply because of how I looked. Had nothing to do with any behavior that I exhibited. Just because of the color of my skin, I had to go to back doors. I had to drink from a filthy colored water fountain with a pristine white water fountain next to it, simply because of the color of my skin and how I looked. I had to sit in the balcony of the movie and the back of the bus simply because of how I looked. And I am so grateful to God for having me have those experiences, because it gives me some sense of appreciation for what others go through simply because of who they say they are. We cannot have the great country that we claim we are if we will continue to discriminate against people because of who they